like that. So welcome everyone to tonight's session. You can see my screen okay?
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And last time, 2 weeks ago, I showed this chat integration, and I thought that was opened up a couple of possibilities that I wanted to sort of research a bit more. So I'm gonna continue to demo a few things that has happened on that front, if that's okay. So you get to it by the start button and navigating to the chat. Now the UI here has been updated and there are more buttons. So there's one general discussion which was the one that I showed 2 weeks ago, which basically is instructed to go to the wiki to find the answers for questions. And what's new with the UI is, I don't know if you remember, but before it was just like a big text field that appended all the answers together, but here I can, now it looks a bit better, and there's a JavaScript control that I've also put into the samples. Let's see if I can remove this one. I had that from before, but so here's a bit of a piece of JavaScript component that jacks into the view model if you wanted to. And what this does is that once you type and press enter, it automatically finds the send button, and it scrolls the messages to show the latest one at the bottom, so that they are shown. So if I pose a question here like what is SQL pass through or doing in MDriven, and I'll just press Control and the data is sent to the server, and so this UI is new, that the question is on top and the explanation is below it, and yeah, if I were to put another question, what does PS eval do? The
One
different
don't need
answers
to put a
are,
question mark in this thing.
sorry?
You don't need a question mark when you talk to ChatGPT, do you?
No, it assumes that everything's a question. Oops, it's confused about something, but let's not get hang up on that. Yeah, it's actually that I was in the wrong. This is on. Yeah. If I copy that and I go to general discussion, what happens when you switch is that you clean the chat and it starts over. Let's see if this one answers better on this particular question. Yeah, so this is a more precise answer because it's supposed to go to wiki.mdriven. This model update is the new stuff that I did, and I thought that turned out pretty neat, because the whole thing about using a large language model eventually should either be to get support in knowledge or get it to do things. So this model update is about getting it to do things. we wanted to use MDriven as a tool somehow. And I've been testing a few things out, but one thing that one would like to make it be able to do is create a class named car, and it says, sure, here's a link to create the car class, and then it gives me the option to push that. So these are now HTML, before they were just text. And if I press that, it added the car class. And then I can say, cool, thanks, add some attributes. And now I don't say car anything. It should remember from the conversation what I'm talking about, hopefully. Yeah, and I spelled it wrong. Yes, add those. Okay, I get some links. I'm gonna add the make attribute, the model attribute, the color attribute, and the year attribute, and everything is done automatic or as stated here. Cool. Add a class person. Okay, absolutely. Now the super cool thing would be if I could write something like this. Add a link between car and person showing the owner, sort of. So now it added an association, and it invented the owned car by itself, and the owner it took from my wording. And I think this is rather amazing. It's a one-to-one association, but I could say, oh, make the owner able to own multiple cars. Come on. It wasn't not that hard a question for a person. It was apparently a hard question for someone.
Are we sure that there is like artificial intelligence, or is it like a whole room full of Indians?
Turks. No, it's mechanical Turks. Yeah.
What happened?
I don't know. Maybe the portal got into problems. Yeah. Too bad. It's like this when you're doing demos.
But even before that, that is really cool. It means that you can basically speak out a model.
Yes. So too bad that we got stuck here then. And I won't help if I do a refresh either, because that's a session that's hanging. I'm gonna try that anyway because see what happens. Okay. Do we
Scroll down again.
work? Yeah. Okay, so it answered actually. No problem. We can update the owner. Yeah, but I think. So I'm gonna push that one, and now it added a new association, so it doesn't change the existing one, and I did it like that on purpose just to make things easier for me. So I'm gonna delete the old one and be happy with the one that I have. So and it actually flipped it the wrong way, right? So there are many owners on one car, so no, that's wrong. You made many owners. I'm gonna get angry with it. Oh, I apologize. Okay, let's see if it got it right. No, it still make to allow a person to own multiple car objects. So I've noticed this from time to time that it gets confused, like, and I've noticed this on pupils, real life people as well. There's a lot of people that
I've always had trouble with this one myself.
So, and the rule is that you always read the association in the far end. But I guess it's trained on a lot of crappy examples. So what I'm gonna do is to clear the history so that it doesn't remember anything of the old. And then I'm gonna delete these. And then I'm gonna say add a link between car and owner.
Isn't it person?
Yeah, person. Person is the owner of multiple cars. Yeah, so now I did it right. It says multiple here, but it calls the association and owner. So, okay, this is worse than when I've tested it during the week here, but so no,
But it would be then if this had an audio interface, which I guess it can have quite easily, it at least would be easy. It's like, let's change the car class. Let's add this and 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 this, and you just say it, and then it just adds them.
Owner link be named cars instead. Yeah, so now it was okay. I'm gonna delete that one. Pew, alright. Can you do view models? Oh, right. Do the auto forms. Okay, cool. So now we actually have enough, and what I want to do possibly is to add a command for start things up. Currently we need to do this manually, so I'm gonna start the server and go to a browser, and now I have something where I can seek for new person. So So, oh, there's no attributes on person. Too bad, my bad. Add some common attributes to person. First name, last name, date of birth, email. Save. Update the forms again. Yeah. I'm gonna save. All right, cool.
Oh,
And of course, let's work with this together and consider what we need this kind of help with, because it's fairly give me some example data of cars. It would be cool if I could have it to inject some instances. So but what this did now is using the last type of command that I've implemented, and that's the explain command. So what I can have it doing is please explain the person class. And this is totally different, because what it does okay, this didn't ask me for any additional information. It just went on the chat history or from. So I'm gonna press model update, forget everything, and ask it again. And then it puts this link, get data on the person class in the model. So what it will do is this link will ask MDrivenDesigner to put in structured data, and that's actually just what we get from pressing on the person class and pressing copy. And that's an XML field that we use for copy paste. And then it tries to do something with that. So I'm gonna do that. And what will happen in this UI is that we actually do this off screen, so that we don't bloat the chat with the structured data, and then we force it to answer based on things we haven't shown, and then it comes back with an answer on those things that we sent it. So so I don't know what the hell it did, but let's try something else. So we have some view models. I'm gonna ask it to explain the autoform car. Explain the view model autoform car. Yes. I told it in the prompt that it should ask if it wasn't sure. No, I don't think this is doing it the correct thing currently. I'm gonna clear it again, and I'm gonna say I'm gonna be clearer. Explain autoform car from my model. Get data on class named out. No, that's okay. No, it's a view model. Oh, okay. Let's see. Did I miss? Okay, I think it says type out the form when it should say. So there's some tweaking here, but yeah. Can you at least please explain the class car from my model? No, it sort of goes out to please work. So nothing it has said has been absolutely wrong, but it hasn't been based on the information that I have provided. So that was what I was looking for. Now it says lots of input instead of the big blob of structured text that we sent it describing the view model, and or rather the car. And now it says the car class has 4 attributes which are named blah blah blah. Let's see if that's true. Yes. The model attribute is of type string and allow null values. The year attribute is of blah blah blah. The car class also participates in a couple of associations. One association is with the person class and is named person cars. No, that's not right. This association endpoint. The association is actually named person cars because if we don't have a explicit name set on the association, we use the target classes and the names of the association ends. So that's actually correct. It's navigable and have multiplicity 1 to many, meaning that blah blah blah. So that's a pretty good explanation. So I can currently, I've noticed that we quite quickly run into the limitation of 8,192 tokens that this particular large language model that we use pose. But that will, of course, be different when we switch to newer models as they are made available. And also probably the precision in what we try to say to it and how it interprets will be different and better when we switch to GTP4. And of course this is what I've done with really simple means in MDrivenDesigner, but what I want to sort of sell you on the idea that this would be really, really easy to do the same way in any line of business application, especially one that is developed with MDriven, because if you have used sort of actions and everything is structured in the application, you could just have a user asking what are the commands, and it would your application would list all the available actions in available contexts, and then you could have the chat engine execute one of those actions just by selecting data on the screen, and that would be done in a very generic way. Of course it wouldn't be generic if you do it traditional coding and everything is unique, but if you're model driven, you should have a sort of a better environment to to automate things like this. And you could use it to help the user find their way around the application, to find actions where to do things, or you could have it to sort of explain what a complete view model actually entails and what it does and what information is in there, and maybe what the read-only expressions are and the enabled expressions if the user can't get access to a certain field. So and it's quite good to take this kind of structured information that we get from the model and translate it into prose, readable by a normal non-developer human.
Because that means that if we have an end user application, you could have like a helping hand. Ask me about how I function, and then you could ask it, and we have all the model metadata available right off to so where can I where do I find the invoice button? Yeah, you go to this form, so I click here, and then you just click that link and you are on the invoicing form if you're allowed to see it, of course, and then and things like that. That's really super cool.
And maybe that's something that we could offer like a standard so that would be an offering from us to, of course anyone could do it themselves, but it would be a generic thing if we follow the actions and the view models, and being a generic thing, it would fit nicely in some kind of offering from us to just, of course, there's some, probably you want your own engine and model, large language model, and control that, and that's fine. But if we give it the prompt and
that also means then that if we add more, like we usually do, if we process the code comments and everything,
yes,
it would actually understand what the thing is about.
Yeah.
And that means that you could say things like, yeah, so how do I, what's the point of this field here? Or what do I do with this? Or how does this relate to that? And then it can explain that.
Yeah. Is this field used anywhere else? Is there anywhere else I can fill this in? Or who cares about this field? Who cares about this piece of information? And not only on design level, but in runtime. So that would be a good interface, because we have struggled a bit making the model understandable to end users. Of course, we can show them these are the definitions, and these we tried that with verbalization of different things, but this would be a much better verbalizer.
And then so it would be like a model genie in the designer, and then you have an app genie or whatever we would call it. It's like this little lamp there that you can try to shine, and then the genie shows up and you can talk about your application content with it.
It should be a paperclip, an annoying paperclip, I think.
and then but then it's also so cool, because then you could say, take me to where I invoice, or take me to the search for customer page.
Yeah.
And you just boom, it goes there.
And I think that this is the one of the really good applications of a large language model, just replacing the point and click interface with words, with dialogue, with discussion. Because it's once you narrow it in that these are the available options, don't invent your own shit, then it's pretty good to just follow the instruction.
And we would really bring out the power of all the effort spent into modeling, because here we have a truly way of bringing all the efforts of the developer to describe the business cases and all those things straight out of the developer realm into the user space.
Yeah.
Cool. And then I guess the next step would be, I guess, to say, please search for a customer called, Bob. What was the name of that little thing?
The paperclip. I don't know
Clippy?
what it was called.
Sorry?
It was called Clippy, plain and simple.
Oh, yeah. Find a customer called Clippy, and then it would just like bring up the seeker and put in Clippy and search. It's like, yeah, there it is. And then it's like invoice, and then it like just that. And fill in this information. The address is, and choop.
Yeah. And of course, yeah. So it's opens up a whole. Of course, the large language model won't be able to have any precision without us feeding it precision. It will just grab stuff from its learnings, from what it has read on the internet, and that will very, very seldom be the correct deduction and thing to do in an enterprise setting. But giving it access to hard facts like a model, and pointing it in the right sort of area of the model will take all the efforts that went into modeling and make that a lot more easily consumed by any coworker that might be interacting with the application. So I think that's a very good example of what the language model is good at, and what structured definition is good at, and how they two can meet. So this is sort of an example of how we meet in the other way, how we can talk just taking prose language and turning it into structure, and that's sort of a pain. Anyone that know their stuff, once they know it, will much rather just right click here and say add attribute than writing something here. But as a starter to prove a point and to get a feel for what is possible, this might be a very good interface to take away all the scary options.
Yeah, definitely, because you don't need to know exactly where it is. You can ask it where it is.
Yes.
Like, where do I have an attribute called color? Well, here it is. Of course, you can search, but still, it's like a very different take on it. And I'm sure there will be, you can probably ask in Swedish here even, and it will like translate to English.
Yes.
And get back to you. And so that's kind of a cool thing too. And then I'm just thinking, of course, these language models will come with understanding spoken language and answering in synthetic voice, and then you can call, like I'm thinking about end user applications. You could call up your service line, like at a company, and says, yes, I'm this and this and this, and I left my car for treatment with this and this registration number. Is it done?
Yeah,
Then
that
it
would
comes
be
back.
really, yes, of course. Then we could sort of, if it's a service system that gonna have interaction with customers, and we could do that by voice, that would be really, really good, of course, because that would remove the hassle to answer the phone.
So yeah, and it's then you can just call up and do things, and I think this will of course come with the booking times and appointments and all those things. And you remember this kind of cool demo they made where the computer calls and books a hairdresser time.
Yeah.
But that was, I guess it's getting closer now to actually being a thing, because these all need to be highly trained with structured data or data access, and it just makes me happy to think that maybe finally, can be rewarded for having so structured metadata.
Yeah. So um, so a large language model will probably evolve to do human things really, really good, but non-human or things that humans are not that good at, it won't be able to do very good, like computation. And humans are crappy at computation. So what we do is use tools. We use tools like MDriven and other tools, of course. And if we just learn it to use MDriven in a few simple steps, then I think we are much better off than if we try to learn it to write C#, because the degrees of freedom in C# are so large. So the number of things that doesn't make sense but are still syntactic correct is like a factor million higher, and you won't you would want a tool that is more to the point, a tool that actually knows more or less what you want to do. You want to do information, you want to do associations between these definitions, and you want to show it on the screen and persist it. So this is a much better tool.
So right now, can I go to start my designer and have a model with 300 classes and ask it to just consume the whole model, and then I can do stuff, or it's like too much for it?
Yeah, that's way too much. So what it's gonna do, you can do just the things that I've done now, but you ask it for a specific class, and then and if you ask it to create a class that you already have, you might get a double class, etc. But then you press undo, and so these are the commands that we offer. Can you list all your commands? Oh, I hope it doesn't do it in German, but just because that was the last thing I said. Sure, here's a list of the commands. You can create a new class, you can add a new attribute to a class, a new association between two classes, create or update view models for all classes, show a specific diagram in the model, get data on a specific item in the model. So that's what's currently available. I don't know what. And of course, I can just show how I defined what it should do. Have you seen this, Dennis? That it sort of forgets the...
Yes, he has.
Okay.
We know.
Gonna do my admin of chat, and so this is the system prompt for update mode. This is all I say to it in order to get this behavior, and I do things like this. You can support user with adding attributes to a class by showing an embedded link. Oh, maybe a bad English here. By showing an anchor link with a dummy address, giving the parameters and saying that it should have some explanation, in the anchor text and restricting it to have these types. And what happens when the embedded browser gets clicked, I screen it for where we want to go. And if we want to go to this bogus address, I hijack the call and I look it up, what are the parameters, and then I try to act on it in with C# code, and then we're pretty much done. So it's a pretty easy way to interface with the. And of course I can change this in runtime and then I get it completely different behavior. So of course I need to back it with the actually handling of any new commands that I introduce here. But I had to add this on the end. Only use the explicit commands described here. Do not extrapolate or guess. Better to ask for clarification and tell users that they can always right click on an item to find commands. Because before I had this, it sort of invented its own commands that it thought would be logical. So well, maybe I can do start the application. Yeah. So it's
It's weird that he can say it's like don't guess to a machine.
Yeah, it's impressive. Cool.
Yeah. Do we have any questions? But I don't know if Derek, maybe he couldn't say anything.
No, he was on a different machine without microphone and cameras. But do anyone see any dangers or possibilities with this?
Not with this. I mean, this is just a great way to, as I said, finally get to use our metadata that we have locked in our design and bring it out to, both help designers and others and also the app consumers. It's really, really powerful. So if you have a huge model, like we have some with hundreds of classes and hundreds of view models, it's very difficult to find your way. Now you could ask this one and get real help.
Yeah. So one thing is to have an online, so that you could ask it live. Another way would be to sort of generate on common questions to pull all, explain this, and put it into a wiki, so that you would in design time sort of anticipate and get a language description of everything. So instead of writing elaborate documentation, you would just ask this one to do it for you, and index that. But of course it would be much cooler to have it do it in runtime, because there's an infinite way that the user might want to query the model. And Microsoft have this new service as well called cognitive search, and that's for data more. So possibly we would, I guess it's like everything with online search engines, that there's a complexity with the cache invalidation, that it will always be a bit old data and it won't be precision. But I haven't tried the cognitive search. It's most beneficial when you have unstructured data, I guess. So if you have a lot of PDF documents or Word documents and Excel spreadsheets and images, it will crack those and put that into a big database, and then it will use strategies like this to answer question based on that. And of course that will sort of spit out unstructured information, and that unstructured information can go into the chat engine to make it more pinpointed answer to what the question actually was, so it doesn't get out spit out as generic clippings from a PDF. But of course having control of the data is something that's very valuable. So if you have the 100% precision like you have in the model, you don't want to dumb it down to some document structure and then query that, because there's less information within it.
So this, I guess, also would mean that if we could prime this so that in an end user application, if you have logged in, it has access to your information. Otherwise, it doesn't have access to your information, because that's also a very important thing, that it doesn't start babbling about someone else's invoices or something.
Yeah.
But also in this case, that's like, so what is the amount of the invoice you sent last month? Well, it's about 10,000-ish or something around that number. Like kind of keep invoice figures strict.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's always the problem with doing enterprise applications, that of course the requirement is can't we just have it like Google? Just a search box, and then you press and then it pops up and one of the 5 first answers is the correct one. But that never works in an enterprise setting because the lack of data and the need for precision. So those two, there's much less data and there's much higher need for exactness. And that's why it's really, really hard to make a good one-button search in an enterprise settings that actually makes sense. You have to sort of give it more information all the time. But this might be a good middle ground. So you can give it information and it's sort of... you don't feel like you're interrogated if you just say, I want to know the amount from the invoices, because that's quite a lot of information just in that sentence. But if you were to put that into a search engine, it would be total BS coming back. Unless someone actually wrote
probably, when you have logged in, one could probably also maybe prime it, generate that prime directive or whatever we should call it, and so it knows where we're looking and what the context are. So having a good language model together with customer specific information has to be a killer app.
Good. So we're running out of time. Thank you for tuning in tonight, and let's see what we can come up to with until next time. Yeah.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Good night.
Good night.
Thank you. Have a nice evening.
Thank you, Derek.
Yes. Bye-bye.